You know?
A bunch of misfits.
Yeah, a bunch of misfits.
So the Reveille formations, that's like an official,
wake up
formal
hey,
wake-up sequence.
We're waking up
procedure.
at 6. We're meeting at 6:30. That's happening every day. And then at the end of the day, here's what we're doing. You know, we're assembling again. We're putting out final word. And then you can go and, you know, have dinner or whatever.
Huh, okay.
So just really highly disciplined formalities.
Yeah.
Even
just waking up.
Yeah, just waking up.
That's a procedure.
We're keeping it real across the board. Continuing on, in the Third Army, when troops are not in the actual combat zone nor engaged in tactical exercises or range firing, corps and separate division commanders will see that regular Reveille formations be held in attendance, at which there will be a minimum of 1 officer per company or similar unit, and in addition, when practicable, a minimum of 1 field officer per regiment or separate battalion. B, that it shall be customary for all organizations to hold formal retreat under arms. Attendance, in addition to the prescribed enlisted men, shall be all officers of company grade. In the case of regiments and separate battalions, a minimum of 1 field officer. B, that in the case where music is available and it is practicable from a billeting standpoint, frequent regimental and battalion retreat parades and similar ceremonies will be held. Again, this is stuff that in the SEAL teams, this never happens. I mean, it happens like when someone retires or when there's a funeral. Like, it does not happen where you could go years without ever putting on a dress uniform. You could go years. So just kind of saying. That unit and organizational guard shall be performed strictly within accordance to FM 26 TAC 5. When music is available, formal guard mounts will be held frequently. E, that officers in formation wear a uniform analogous to that worn by the enlisted men, and that all officers participate in all drills and marches at all times with their organizations or units. This includes marching to and from training areas and ranges. So that's the end of that list. So you can see he ain't playing around.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to be highly disciplined part of this situation here.
So in life, you know, because there's like format, you know, like dinner time, for example. That's like another.
Yep.
I mean, that's not another, but like an example of life.
It is
formality.
Kind of. Hey, fam.
It's dinner time. Wash hands
every day. 6 o'clock.
Right.
5:55. Wash hands. 6 o'clock at the table.
Yep.
That's what we're doing.
Be home before dinner.
Be home before dinner. All those things.
Yeah.
Those are like things that you could put in your life. Or, you know, wake up when the alarm clock goes off. Get your workout. Like, there's things you do every day, right? Yeah. Brush your teeth. Floss your teeth. Stupid, right? Until you got your teeth falling out.
Yeah.
Until you got dental problems.
Dental scenarios. Bedtime too. Well, the dinner time is a big one because it's like everyone does it. There's a procedure that's in place. Hey, wash hands. Sometimes they have one kid set the table or whatever. Maybe 2 kids, whatever. Then you can't just roll out. You gotta what?
May I please be excused?
Yeah. And then it's like, okay, then, you know, then cleanup time or whatever, however you handle that, there's different ways or whatever. And then you're sort of done, you know, and it's everybody's a part of that.
Yeah. That's a little minor example of this.
Yeah.
And a good
time
one
too, I guess. Thanks.
Continues on here. Officers are always on duty. And their duty extends to every individual junior to themselves in the U.S. Army. Not only to members of their own organization. That's awesome. You know, and this, you want to talk about, like, this is a good way to think about life as a human being, right? Like, your duty extends to every human. Like, I'm here to help other people. Not just people that I know, but everybody. Next, Americans with arms in their hands are fools as well as cowards to surrender. If they fight on, they will conquer. He says this: cases of misbehavior before the enemy will be brought before General Court-Martial and tried under the 75th Article of War. It has been my experience that many court-martials are prone to view this most heinous offense, for which the punishment of death may be inflicted, in too lenient a manner. They should realize that the lives of troops are saved by punishment of initial offenders. Cowardice is a disease, and it must be checked before it becomes an epidemic. That sounds super hardcore. I'm going to tell you a quick story. were you? No, it was Andy and I were training the other day. And we were training on the Jocko mat, right? Sure. So we're training on the Jocko mat. And actually, as we showed up, someone else was showing up to train too. And it was 2 adult males. And they had a 14-year-old kid with them, estimated age.
Sure.
And, I know the dads a little bit. I was, hey, what's going on? Oh, I bring my friend. Oh, they have their son, or he's got his son here. He trained a little bit here or there. I'm like, okay, but he's not sure about getting back into it. I guess he probably trained when he was, let's say, 8, right? Yeah. So it's been a few years. Mm-hmm. And the kid, I look over the balcony thing, and I see the kid. And I go, is that him? And he's like, yeah, is he allowed in? I go, yeah. I go, hey, send that kid up here. So the kid comes up. And I'm just like hanging out, having fun, whatever. So then the kid shows up, and like getting warmed up with Andy, and we take 5-minute warm up round. And I say to the kid, I'm like, oh hey, you trained before? And he says, yeah, I trained a little bit. And I was like, okay, cool, that's awesome. And then I do a couple rounds with Andy, and then I say, meanwhile the 2 dads are training with Guy, by the way. This is a long story. I'm sorry. I'll make it as short as possible. Eventually, I say to the kid, hey, are you going to train? And he goes, well, I'm not sure I'm allowed to. Mm. And I said, no, actually, I own the gym. So that means you can go. Yeah, I'm telling you right now, you can go train. So come out on the mat. Because I'm thinking there's a kid here that could change his life and have a better life, and his whole world will improve if he trains jiu-jitsu, right? He's in the gym, bro. I mean, this is like a low-hanging fruit. Let's get this kid in the game.
Sure, yeah.
So then he says, I don't have a gi. What the dad, not his dad, the other guy, the friend of his dad was like, I have one for you. And I go get it. Mm-hmm. So then he runs out, goes to get the gi from the car. The kid kind of puts the gi on, comes out on the mat. You can see the kid's not really 100% down with this whole thing, right? Yeah. For whatever reason, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe it's because it's weird to be with your dad and his old man friend, right? Like, sure, yeah. I'm a 14-year-old kid. We're hanging out with these old guys doing whatever this weird, thing is. Mm-hmm. Here's the apex of the story that I've been trying to get to. Eventually, the kid's on the mat. He's in his gi. I'm training with Andy. We're on a break during rounds. And I hear the kid. So they're on a break, too, because they're doing 5-minute rounds. But it's just the 2 dads. Mm. And I hear them trying to convince the kid to get around with. His dad was the beginner. The other guy is like maybe high level white belt, maybe like blue belt type level. So he's kind of showing him what to do. Yeah. And they're kind of trying to convince the kid, but the kid's kind of like, well, and so I look over there and I go, hey, you get on him right now. You're doing the next round. And the kid just like goes and starts the round.
Get on.
I go, hey, you're in. I go, you go against him now. And the kid like just obeyed. Right? Yeah. My point in saying this whole thing is like sometimes that kind of leadership is required. Because all you're trying to do is push the kid in the right direction. Yeah. Push the soldier in the right direction. Push the employee in the right direction. Hey, get up there on that thing. Hey, just make that phone call. Hey, just go confront that guy. Like sometimes people need a little push. Yeah. That's all this kid needed was just a little push. Yeah. And he wasn't looking at me like going to say, no, I don't want to. And if he would, who knows? I would have dealt with the scenario appropriately. At least I would have tried to. Right. But sometimes people just need a little push. Oh, yeah. So this idea, and that's that whole opening speech from Patton. Say what you want about it. Here's the standard. Americans love winners. Americans hate cowards. Like that's a gang mentality that you can start. Mm-hmm. You can start it in a company. You can start in a business. We don't settle down. We don't settle for that. Whatever it's going to be. Mm-hmm. You call that out, and that becomes a part of your culture, right? So sometimes when he's talking about this cowardice thing, I mean, you hear it all the time, right? You hear it. Well, you hear it in an organization. You let a little bit of slack. A little bit of slack here. A little bit. That's why when Hackworth makes the call of, you say to the enlisted guys say to the officer, hardcore recondo. The officers say back, no fucking slack. That starts to become the mentality. Even though, and Hackworth even says it in the beginning, people are like, oh, who's this gung-ho, Mr. Gung-ho? It's like, no, that starts to become the standard. You have to start somewhere. So these are methods of leadership. Can people go overboard with this stuff? Of course they can. Totally. That's why there's an economy of leadership that has to be balanced. And there's so many times where Patton, again, kind of like we'd see with Chesty Puller. Like Chesty Puller, this big, bombastic figure of courage and bravery and being super hardcore, hard-nosed. When you read that book about him, man, he loved his guys. Hey, old man, you might not want to do that. Remember that? Like, was this the way he would talk to his guys?
Yeah.
And yet he was super hardcore. Patton, same thing. So he's saying, look, when you get cowardice, yes, you nip it in the bud. Get someone acting up, you go, hey, we don't act like that. And someone goes, oh, gosh. Next section is tactical usages. These are good. Combat principles. There is no approved solution to any tactical situation. Boom. There is no approved solution to any tactical situation. There is only one tactical principle which is not subject to change. It is to so use the means at hand to inflict the maximum amount of wounds, death, and destruction on the enemy in the minimum amount of time. That's what doesn't change. To so use the means at hand to inflict the maximum amount of wounds, death, and destruction on the enemy in the minimum amount of time. That's not going to change. We're holding fast with that one. Next, in battle, casualties vary directly with the time you are exposed to effective fire. Your own fire reduces the effectiveness and volume of the enemy fire, while rapidity of attack shortens the time of exposure. A pint of sweat will save a gallon of blood. That's cover and move, by the way, obviously. We're going to put down fire while we move. That's cover and move. Battles are won by fighting the enemy. Fear is induced by inflicting death and wounds on him. Death and wounds are produced by fire. Fire from the rear is more deadly and 3 times more effective than fire from the front. But to get fire behind the enemy, you must hold him by frontal fire and move rapidly around his flank. Frontal attacks against prepared positions should be avoided if possible. Cover and move, and don't attack directly. Use indirect attacks. Thank you. Thank you, General Patton. Catch the enemy by the nose with fire and kick him in the pants with fire in place through movement. Cover and move. Hit hard soon. That is with two battalions up in a regiment, or 2 divisions up in a corps, or 2 corps up in an army. The idea being to develop your maximum force at once before the enemy can develop his. That's prioritize and execute, by the way. Focus your attacks. You can never be too strong. Get every man and every gun you can secure, provided it does not unduly delay your attack. The German is a champion digger. The larger the force and the more violence you use in your attack, whether it be men, tanks, ammunition, the smaller your proportional losses. This is a tough one. This is one that you can get caught thinking that, oh, we're going to do this big attack, that there's going to be casualties. It's like, there's going to be less casualties if you do it with the biggest force you can and the most violence you can possibly do your attack with. Never yield ground. It is cheaper to hold what you have than retake what you have lost. Never move troops to the rear for a rest or to reform at night, and in the daytime only where absolutely necessary. Such moves may produce a panic. Here's tactical rules in particular subjects. Use roads to march on, fields to fight, and troops should not deploy into line until they're forced by enemy fire. When you are advancing in broken country against possible tank attacks and using leapfrog method, be sure to keep the anti-guns up as well. Leapfrog, what that is?
As far as I know what the game leapfrog is.
But it's also cover and move.
Right.
What? Because I hold position, you leap forward. Once you get there, you hold position, meaning you either fire or you prepared to fire if you have to, and then I move.
Right.
So this is called a leapfrog.